We can move on and talk about Manchester City. Now, Pete, is there any update for them with FFP, please, in terms of their potential timeline of sanctions and charges?
Again, a bit like Chelsea, obviously the Premier League have admitted they have got a date set for the hearing, but they haven't made that public, so it's all guessing. A few reports suggesting that it could be around October time this year that maybe those charges could be heard, but with so many charges against Manchester City, 115, it's a very complex case. As Paul mentioned earlier, they have kicked the can down the road since they initially got those charges. I think it was in February 2023 when they were initially charged by the Premier League for those financial irregularities. So I think it's unlikely to conclude before the end of next season. So I think it'll drag on and drag on. Manchester City have these team of lawyers and they're adamant that they have done nothing wrong. So they will fight their case tooth and nail. There's no doubts about that. When we do finally get a verdict from the Premier League and an independent commission for these 115 charges. So I think it's going to drag well into 2025 before we do get any resolution on what potential punishment Manchester City might face.
Paul, in terms of Pep Guardiola, what do you think for his future? And actually, if they are to be sanctioned, whenever that will be, whether it's 25, 26, do you think he will walk? Could we see him go? Or actually, do you think he will stick with the club regardless of what happens?
Well, he said before, didn't he, in his press conference, I don't know if it's tongue-in-cheek, but he said he'd look forward to bringing them back from League Two if that was the case, or something along those lines. But you can't see it, can you? I mean, you don't know. I mean, there's always a question over Pep, when's he going to have enough? I mean, Manchester City without Pep, he's going to leave a huge void. In the same way that Jurgen Klopp's going to leave a huge void at Liverpool, if and when Pep Guardiola does leave Manchester City, there's going to be a huge changing of the guard there. Nobody's just going to pick up that bat and run, because now with the FFP and everything else, you're not just going to be able to sign players willy-nilly. Will League Two or League One potentially, or even the Championship, appeal to Pep? You don't know whether he'd see it as a challenge, whether he'd see it as a, right, we'll keep the squad together, we'll regain momentum, and in a similar way to Rangers did up in Scotland, go all the way through in the leagues and go back up and win the league and challenge for trophies. So it would be his drive, his determination, and his own personal ambition. I mean, he can't really achieve much more than he's achieved in the game. You look at the difference that he's made at all the clubs that he's been at, and like I say, it's his own personal ambition as to where he wants to be and what he wants to do. Whether he would see that as, and he'd take that as a challenge that he wouldn't necessarily normally have faced in his football career, if they are to be relegated through a league, or for him to get them out of the Championship. Personally, can't see it.
No, I'm sure, Pete, you potentially feel the same with that head shake.
Yeah, I don't see Pep Guardiola going down and managing in League Two and going through all that to try and get Manchester City back to the. I don't think that's going to happen anyway. I don't think Manchester City will be relegated down the leagues. I don't see it happening at all.
And why is that, Pete? Is that for integrity of the league? What's the reason for not relegating them?
Yeah, I think it'll be the integrity of the league. It'll be probably a huge fee, a huge punishment of maybe having to repay money or something like that. I think the maximum they would possibly get would maybe be relegated to the Championship. I don't see anything else being as draconian as that. And obviously Manchester City are such a superpower right now as well. They escaped any punishment from UEFA when it looked like they were going to be kicked out of the Champions League for a couple of seasons. That didn't happen, and I don't think the Premier League will do anything too serious with them either, despite all these 115 charges. And City are adamant that they haven't done anything wrong, so they're going to fight them as well. And for me, I see Pep Guardiola, obviously, like Paul said, it's his own ambition. He'll decide when the time's right to leave Manchester City. It won't be Manchester City deciding. He'll decide if he's had enough, or if he wants a new challenge or a break. So I just think 2025, when his contract ends, is the perfect time for him to go. I think we'll probably see Pep Guardiola leave then. He's seen his big adversary in Jurgen Klopp leave Liverpool this summer as well. So I think Pep Guardiola will, when 2025 comes around, it'll be similar time scale that Klopp had at Anfield, 9 years. And what a success story Guardiola's been. So I just think you can see him maybe take a sabbatical, maybe look at taking an international job if that's what he fancies, because he's achieved everything in the club game. There's nothing else he needs to achieve. So I just think it'll just be a perfect ending for him when his contract expires 2025 for him to walk off into the sunset, probably with a few more trophies under his belt.
And Pete, what's the shared reaction, do you think, across the league to the delay in going through the 115 charges? As you've kind of mentioned, Richard Masters has clearly said that there is a date, but we don't know. Should that be publicised? Should we know as fans what is going to happen to them over the next few months? Or is it fair that they keep it under wraps?
No, I think we need to know. I think the fans deserve to know. We've known about Everton and Nottingham Forest and what they've been going through. Those fans have been through a lot of pain and heartache this year and uncertainty with the points deductions they've had. They've had minimal charges compared to Manchester City's. Obviously, City's are slightly different from not breaching PSR regulations and everything else. But I just think for the good of the league and the integrity of the league, we need more transparency on it. And the sooner we get that, the better, because there's just so much speculation going on, and that doesn't do anybody any good with people speculating what might happen to Manchester City and when the verdict might be. So I think a resolution is required just to sort of put it all to bed, and everybody can move on and we can start talking about football again and not talk about the charges for PSR and everything else.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.